Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a high-stakes story all about the psychology of luxury, the absolute essence of business survival, and why, sometimes, you might just have to do the unthinkable to protect your reputation. We're going to get into the inner workings of some of the most enduring brands in the world. And honestly, by the time we finish, you're going to look at your own work and your own core standards in a completely different light.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a number that is, frankly, just hard to wrap your head around. $500 million. That's $500 million with a B. That is the staggering value of the inventory that Cartier, one of the most prestigious luxury watch and jewelry makers on the planet, willingly bought back from its own sellers. And get this, they didn't buy it back to resell it later. Nope, they laid it out and quite literally drove a steamroller over it, crushing $500 million of their own beautiful, painstakingly crafted products into absolute dust. So you have to ask yourself, why on earth would a highly successful company intentionally destroy its own wealth?
To understand the $500 million steamroller and the Cartier crisis of 2018, we have to look to China, which was Cartier's largest market at the time. When top officials there suddenly placed a strict ban on luxury gifts to combat corruption, demand essentially evaporated overnight. This left sellers sitting on a massive oversupply, and the delicate rhythm of supply and demand was just completely broken.
Here's exactly how this devastating negative cycle played out, step by step. Step 1, the gift ban hits. That immediately causes Step 2, a massive, sudden oversupply in the market. Now, Step 3 is where the real panic sets in. To avoid sitting on all that dead stock, various sellers quietly started discounting. They sold at cut-rate prices, sometimes even taking a loss, just to get the watches off their hands. And naturally, that leads right into Step 4, the total loss of scarcity. You see, luxury is intimately tied to scarcity. If you don't have to wait in line for months to get it, it basically ceases to be a true luxury item. Suddenly, Cartier wasn't scarce anymore. And because of this downward price spiral, buyers just decided to wait. I mean, if a watch is cheaper this month than it was last month, why buy it now? You might as well just wait and see how low the price actually goes.
This loss of scarcity and the price plunge that followed was absolutely catastrophic. We aren't talking about a minor dip in quarterly sales here. The sheer magnitude of this fallout meant that 70% of Cartier's customer base simply vanished. Poof, gone. The brand was facing a tsunami. If they let this cycle continue, Cartier, as a luxury icon, would have been entirely wiped off the map. Because really, nobody buys a depreciating asset just for the prestige.
And this brings us to a fundamental theory about high-end markets, which is the idea of partnership. The true meaning of a luxury brand goes way beyond just making shiny things. A real luxury brand operates as a partner, both to the sellers distributing their products and, more importantly, to the customers and investors who are actually buying them. Think about how standard goods compare to true luxury assets, and you'll see what this partnership actually looks like in practice. For everyday standard goods, a second-hand item is always cheaper. But for true luxury assets, say a Ferrari or specific models of Rolex watches, the second-hand price for a 10-year-old item is often higher than the original factory retail price. You might have paid $3,000 a decade ago, and today that exact same watch is worth $12,000. Luxury products are investment vehicles. The people buying them are pulling that supply out of the market and holding onto it, fully trusting that the brand is going to protect the future value of that item. So, when Cartier's prices started plummeting in 2018, those investors panicked too. They started dumping their own watches onto the market, which just accelerated the tsunami. And this is exactly why the CEO had to step in with such a drastic move. Buying back $500 million in stock and physically crushing it was the only way to completely remove that oversupply. They had to protect the investments of their loyal customers, stop that devaluation cycle dead in its tracks, and prove to the world that Cartier is a reliable partner that will maintain its strict brand standards no matter the immediate financial cost. They literally threw $500 million in the gutter just to avoid selling their reputation cheap.
What's really fascinating here is how we can take this extreme luxury example and apply it to literally any business. It forces us to ask a tough question about defining your core standard. What actually is an existential core?
Let's define this clearly, because it's absolutely crucial. A brand standard is not just some vague set of marketing guidelines. It's the existential core of your work. It is the single, non-negotiable trait that, if removed, completely destroys the brand's meaning and makes it totally unrecognizable. To prove this isn't just a concept for expensive jewelry, let's contrast two massive everyday brands. Walmart's existential core is the absolute cheapest price possible, right? If you walk into a Walmart and suddenly the prices are premium,
Walmart basically ceases to exist in your mind. On the flip side, look at Toyota. Their standard is unbreakable reliability and durability. A Toyota customer genuinely trusts that if a friend is trapped on a mountain in a midnight rainstorm, and that Toyota hasn't been started in 3 weeks, it's going to start on the very first turn of the key to go run that rescue mission. If Toyota loses that reliability, they're no longer Toyota. They just become another random car company we don't particularly trust.
Maintaining these core standards over time is exactly what gives a brand its power. It's all about the pillars of a brand and the power of enduring presence. This stubborn refusal to compromise your core standard over long periods is what creates genuine brand heritage and deep consumer trust. Simply surviving without changing your core is a massive branding tool all by itself.
Consider a brand like Louis Vuitton and its historical timeline. Founded way back in 1854, they survived 2 devastating world wars. They endured the decades-long underlying tension of the Cold War. They outlasted severe economic recessions well into the 2000s. And through all of that immense global chaos, they simply never retreated from their core standards. That track record of unwavering consistency is a huge part of why people still trust and value them so highly today.
And just to be absolutely clear here, having a high standard does not automatically mean being expensive or scarce. Think about Nike. Nike is definitely not a luxury brand. They pump out millions of shoes. But their standard is quality. That is the trench they absolutely cannot retreat from. If Nike starts producing flimsy, low-quality gear that falls apart on athletes, they lose their existential core, and all that hard-earned trust vanishes instantly.
There's this brilliant metaphor that hits the nail on the head. You can change the roof of a building, but you cannot remove the pillar. Think about that for a second. You can swap out your marketing campaigns, you can tweak your pricing models, you can change your store layout. Those are just the walls and the roof, but your core standard is the pillar. If you pull that pillar out just to save a little money or survive a tough quarter, the entire building is going to collapse right on top of you.
Okay, so let's bring this down to earth and see how it plays out in our day-to-day lives, especially when times get incredibly tough. We need to remember to never compromise in a crisis. To really grasp this, let's step away from half-billion-dollar global corporations for a minute and look at a highly personal micro-lesson from a small coffee shop in Tehran.
The narrator of our source material talks about this specific place he went to for years, but listen to this list of absolute flaws. The coffee was bad, the tea was bad, the physical workspace was unpleasant, and to top the whole shebang off, it wasn't even conveniently located near his office. With a list of flaws like that, you really have to wonder, why on earth would anyone ever keep going there?
Well, the answer was just one thing: a friendly human. The owner's exceptionally warm, welcoming, and friendly demeanor was his single competitive advantage. That was his pillar, but recently, due to immense stress and just really tough economic conditions, the owner lost that warmth. He stopped being friendly. And the very moment he retreated from his one and only standard, the customer walked out and never returned. All that loyalty, built up over 5 whole years, just vanished in a single afternoon because the pillar was removed.
And that brings us to the ultimate question. What is the pillar of your business, and are you defending it at all costs? That is the real danger of short-term desperation. When you're struggling, man, it is incredibly tempting to discount your products, lower your quality, or let your customer service slide just to survive the month. But giving in to that desperation and dropping your standards will inevitably cost you your long-term survival. You have to be willing to defend your pillar at all costs, even if it feels like you're taking a massive hit in the present moment.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a direct challenge. Take a really close look at your own work, your own brand, or your own business, and ask yourself, what is your business pillar? What is the one core standard that you absolutely cannot compromise on without destroying your entire identity? Find it, fortify it, and never, ever let it go.